Welcome to the bar, John.
Thank you, Gary. It's wonderful to be here in the virtual bar on the Friday morning of a bank holiday weekend here in Ireland with the sun shining. Thanks for inviting me along.
You're very welcome. It looks to me, though, and it's the first, we've done 15 or so of these. You look like you're in a beautiful place also.
Thank you. Yeah, well, listen, as I said, we're going into the bank holiday weekend. So listen, anything to lift the spirits and cheer us up. I thought this backdrop would be pretty nice, considering where we are and the fact that all of this is going to be virtual vacations and holidays from now on. So,
well,
yeah, nice for a Friday morning.
You've certainly lifted my mood, and I think I see Richard Branson there in the background. So, so all jokes aside, where are you? Where physically are you right now? Are you in Dublin?
Yeah, Gary, I live in Dublin. I live in Glasnevin in Dublin, so right beside the Botanical Gardens and the Glasnevin Cemetery. So it's a lovely part of the world. I've been here for over 20 years, originally a Southsider from Dublin and crossed the Liffey over 20 years ago, and I haven't looked back. Having said that, all my old friends haven't come over to visit me, so social isolation for me started probably 20 years back. But no, it's a wonderful part of the city. It's actually got an awful lot of greenery here, Gary, with the Botanical Gardens, with a number of other parks, Griffith Park, Albert College Park and such like. So the fact that we are allowed out the 2K is wonderful. We can do a run or a walk through parkland, and we've got the River Talca right beside my house. So it's really nice. And as you know, the last 6 weeks since we've been at home, it's been great to be able to go down to the park with the weather being nice and enjoy some nature as well.
It's an interesting point, and I listened to the news last night that Sports Ireland are saying that there's been a significant increase in subscriptions, even online and health. Can I ask you, you've lived 20 years in the General Botanical Garden, Glasnevin. Is this the first time maybe your collective family have completely appreciated where you live with all those amenities and green and nature and biodiversity on your doorstep, or have you been hugging trees a bit before this as well?
I don't think it's in our nature to be tree huggers, but having said that, we are a pretty active family. We do like our sports. We're all into running, doing the park run, doing jogging and such like, going over to the Phoenix Park on a regular basis. We have a loop from the house around the Botanical Gardens and cemetery, which is about 4.5 kilometers. So actually for the June bank holiday weekend, I'm having a race with my 16-year-old, and there's actually a bit of money waged on it. So it's something we're looking forward to, and we're out training to see who's going to get the family bragging rights
Nice.
for that race.
I like it. And the we, what is the we? You've mentioned many times. You have a big gang there with you.
Yeah, so myself and my wife and 3 kids. So the 2 boys and then the girl, and the boys are 18, 16, and then our girl is 13. So the 2 boys were due to be doing state exams this year. Junior cert is now cancelled, as we know. The leaving cert is due to go on, I think it's in about 3 months' time. It's due to commence. So they're all studying, and they've all got online classes on a regular basis with school. Just for the eldest lad now to have to continue to focus through to the end of July and into August for the leaving cert. Obviously a little bit challenging and a bit disruptive for him, but in all fairness, he's trying to keep the head down and do as much study as possible. So going good.
It's amazing, and through this series, it's come out very clearly that a lot of people have more respect for their kids now, possibly, if that's possible. We all love them, we never have anything bad said about them, but we're actually seeing real bit of resilience and a bit of steel, and from them, how adaptable. Maybe that's what kids are, though. Maybe that's It's us adults that are more fixed in our views. But the theme was, you know, they once they got their head around it, they're a bit more right. This is the way I have to do it. Are you finding that with your lads, or mainly your older lad, I guess?
Yeah, no, in fairness, all three of them actually have shown grit, and you know, as you said, they've adapted really well. They haven't been, you know, moaning about the situation. Like, they've just got on with it. So, you know, which is great to see. And you know, you just have to go with what happens. And we're all obviously looking forward to government's announcements for maybe a bit of relaxing of this. Social distancing, but at the same time, you know, what we're dealing with here is literally life and death. So I think we all appreciate that and understand that. So
I could see RTE giving you a call and having one of those, you know, those docu series about the family with the skipping ropes and the botanical gardens. It sounded like the Brady Bunch to me, but we'll have that discussion later. Have you learned anything about yourself? I know you and I are only 21, but have you learned anything different, anything new?
well, Gary's been a really busy time for me professionally, and actually the lockdown and self-isolation came early for me because for the February midterm, I was over in Italy skiing, and returned through Bergamo on, I think it was the 21st, 22nd of February. And actually the day that we were returning home with the flight was late at night. So we went down to Milan during that Saturday afternoon before the flight, and we went and saw the Duomo, we saw the Galleria, saw La Scala Opera, and the place was just so busy with people and with tourists. You wouldn't think anything was about to happen.
No.
And literally the next day, I was sitting down watching the news, and the news headlines was that northern Italy was in lockdown due to COVID. So within the space of 24 hours, it went from a busy, thriving city to one whereby, you know, everybody had to depart and lock down and self-isolate. And as a consequence, because I was there, Garry, when I returned home to Ireland, Digital Realty, who, because of being having the data centers in Asia Pacific, understood the impact of COVID-19, and their corporate mandate was that anyone who was in an affected area needed to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So actually, I've been self-isolating a bit longer than the general population in Ireland.
So obviously you've mentioned there as vice president for EMEA for accounting, that has a very large geography and distributed team, I'd suggest. So you nearly had a couple of weeks in advance of the whole home site isolation to some of your members of your team, and empathy probably was a good thing to be able to say you can do it. Is that something you've learned about your team? Is the how quickly they've adapted to a different new norm?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, no, the resilience that they've shown has just been wonderful. The team in Ireland and across Europe. We were again lucky that when the national lockdown came, we were in a position to give all the team members the infrastructure required. So the monitors, the docking stations, the laptops and such like, all of those were taken home by our team members, and they were able to create their office environment at home as best they could. So you know, we've managed extremely well. There's been no hiccups, which is wonderful. The other thing I was going to say to you was obviously digital and interaction had that global combination, which occurred in the middle of March. So as I said, it's been really, really busy for me. We were preparing for the close date, and then afterwards, since it's closed, obviously someone in the finance side of things obviously need to prepare for the Q1 results. Pardon?
Had to write a check.
I had to write a few checks. Yeah, and obviously the impact of COVID means that we can't go and meet our new colleagues in interaction who are based in predominantly in the Netherlands from a corporate accounting perspective. So, you know, we've all had to adapt and try and get through this environment as best we could. And as I said, added to that is the combination of two wonderful organizations bringing the combined data center population across EMEA to over 100 for the combined entities. So it's really great.
It's extraordinary as well. As you're talking, I'm thinking that there's a slight pat on the back to you, your partners, your colleagues who've been in the industry, data center, data infrastructure for the last 15 to 20 years. Because if it wasn't the growth and building and resilience and redundancy of that backbone, what we're doing now wouldn't be possible. And I guess more fundamentally, even the new norm, as it's being called, if it is a norm, wouldn't be facilitated without all these products, services, and things. So in a way, there's a digital front line there as well as the other front lines, the most important one being the health, I guess.
Yeah, and like we talk about the Generation Z, now Generation Zoom, they just use technology ubiquitously. They don't ever consider, you know, what it is. It's almost you like electricity. You just go and you turn the switch on and it's there. And as you say, the infrastructure in order to deliver that is what Host in Ireland and all its members, you know, are focused on delivering as seamlessly as possible. So yeah, I think it's wonderful to see that we as a global organization and a global industry have been able to support you know, at a global level, the change in business and in social norms as a consequence of COVID-19 and the isolation that's come from it. And I think we've done it without missing a step. Which is wonderful as well to see. So to your point about the resilience and the capital expenditure that goes in to ensure that we can do it, that is just a case proving that it was well worth it. And I think going forward, this is just going to be the new way of operating. I don't know if you noticed earlier in the week, for example, the CEO of Barclays, when he was announcing his results, made reference to the fact that, you know, having 70,000 employees in city centre offices is probably not going to be the norm going forward, and really trying to push working from home as much as possible. So as you say, I think our industry sector is going to be more and more in demand, which, you know, I think we need to be very grateful for the fact that we're in this unique and privileged position, and I think be generous to others, you know, who aren't in the same place as we are.
I think there's so many points to make there. But first one was my own daughter yesterday told me, Dad, what do you get when you take a Z-Gen with the with the current work environment? I said, what? They're called Zoomers, Zoom and Z-Geners. There's another one for you. The second thing is you're so right, as if I might say a very highly respected and successful accountant, I guess, at your core. You understand when a CEO of Barclays says, why have we got 7,000 people coming to an office when we can have people, the cost benefits, the mental benefits, the physical rent benefits, when all the emotion goes out and somebody puts it on a spreadsheet, you know, that's actually what keeps things sustainable often. And you know that probably better than most.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that is going to be reevaluated now as a consequence of the last few months and the way that we've been operating. And people are talking about this being an inflection point and a turning point. And I think we can see, for example, the green benefits of folks working from home, and unfortunately, the airline business not at the level as was before. There are green benefits, and I know that we are being challenged as a planet to change our ways of doing things. So maybe this is an inflection point, and hopefully it will be for the betterment of mankind going forward. Your children, my children, and even their children also.
But it is true, isn't it? It goes back to a picture paints 1,000 words. And last night, I'm not sure if you saw the fox with her little cubs running down Grafton Street.
Wow, fantastic! That's brilliant.
So, and we've seen others, haven't we? We've seen dolphins in Venice and things like that. So, yeah, I think when it all settles, there'll be winners, losers, positive, negative. But I like what you've been saying throughout, and particularly earlier, you said you learned from your Asian Pacific colleagues and what they'd been through to give yourself. You listen to the science, I might suggest. You also listen to logic. You also listen to your colleagues, trusted, to apply best practice that you saw appropriate for your unit within your country. And I think it sounds such common sense when you say it like that. But maybe that, in hindsight, will also be something that we look at. Trust a bit more the scientists, maybe?
Absolutely, it makes sense. I think from a global perspective, health and safety, so employee health and safety, when we know that this is a life and death virus, that lesson came, as you said, from Asia Pacific globally at a very quick pace, and as a consequence, when COVID hit Europe, and we had to adapt as a global organization. The mandate and the communications was definitely there, that we weren't in any way to treat this in a way that would put health and safety at risk.
And we might, I'm thinking again out loud, and I know that you have a passion for the planet too, but maybe it'll also help the overall scientists that are trying to tell us, shout from rooftops that 1.5 degrees, etc., is not just something that we should desire, but we have to desire. So I'm thinking of them as the scientists as well, that often don't get the correct airing that they deserve.
Yeah, and I think it's disappointing that organizations are taking a bashing. That the likes of the World Health Organization seems to be in the crosshairs a little bit at the moment, in the same way that previously, climatologists and such like, that their message wasn't been listened to. I don't think that's going to do mankind any good at the end of the day. It's irrefutable, and at some stage we need to stop coming up with unreasonable arguments to try and not listen to their message.
I live here, and all jokes aside, I live in Enniskerry, and I'm looking out at the Sugarloaf and stuff, and it's magnificent. But I can also see to my right Bray Head, and a mate of mine who works for the Bray fire department told me, do you remember Bray Head was on fire quite some time ago?
Yes.
With the thing, and there was a smoke cloud everywhere, and people were complaining to him about the smoke, to him, the firefighter, about the smoke. And his answer to them was, the first thing to do is put the fire out, and then we'll forensically analyze afterwards how we avoid it the next time. It's not a time to be talking about the forensics when you're actually just have to put the fire out. And that, you can learn so much. We spoke earlier about a refrigeration guy in a Debenhams or somewhere, can teach you so much logic, common sense, because sometimes in business we start to surround ourselves with jargon and spreadsheets and all that layers of stuff. When you talk to a bloke like a fireman out there putting his life in the line, let's put the fire out first, he says, and then we worry about. And you can carry that sentiment, right?
Makes sense.
It makes
Yeah,
sense.
makes sense.
So
Absolutely.
this has been fun. I feel warm and I feel a glow every time I look at you with that palm tree behind you. And I haven't said that much in my life about anyone connected with accounting, so you should feel very privileged.
Let's hope.
Yeah,
The whole idea is to change the perception of accountants.
I tell you, in one video, man, you've done it. You've done it straight up. Is there 3 words that you could that you live by, or you could see as a way to live by going forward?
Well, looking at you and the bar behind you, I'm thinking of post-COVID party. How about that? That will be pretty good. We're all looking forward to a post-COVID party. And maybe the message there is, you know, listen, there will be future brighter days ahead of us, and let's, you know, keep looking for the sunshine and enjoying life and thinking of positives.
John, it's been a real pleasure to have you on, and also I'd like to thank Digital Realty as a founding partner of Host in Ireland, along with some of the other backbone co-location companies. It's easy to say now, in hindsight, that Host in Ireland is a logical thing to do for a community. But 5 years ago, when we started it, it took a lot of fingernail pulling from the likes of Bernard Gagan and that to get people in a community collaborating with their competitors. So Interaction, Equinix, Digital Realty, you know, it's not that easy. But 5 years ago, and the whole objective was the power of the collective. And I think that even now we're finding we're not having to rewrite any of our objectives or mission statements, because digital and those that came together at the start were and created the culture of the power is in the collective. So thank you, John. Thank you, Digital Realty. Enjoy your afternoon on the beach. Don't put Hawaiian Tropic on because it's so unpopular now.
Lovely. Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Thanks a million.